here. Just give me a second. I got too much open here. Hold on 1 second. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to play our opening. Here we go. Share and go.
Where does yesterday's future, which is already here, meet today's future, which is about to happen, and tomorrow's future, which could be just minutes away? Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now, where host Bonnie D. Graham asks savvy futurists for their predictions about the tech-driven trends that are shaping our future right now. Here's your host, who will take us into the future of now, Bonnie D. Graham.
Bonnie D in the house. Happy to be here. Let me stop the audio here. Oh, isn't that a lovely intro? We get more than usual. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's June 19th here. I'm in the Eastern time zone in the United States, and I have a question for all of you out there. I haven't introduced my guest yet, and I will in a second, but listen, I have a problem. I ordered switch plates from a major store that does home renovation supplies. I'm not going to mention the color of the logo or the name of the store, but H is the first word. And they didn't carry them in the store. It's a big store. And I had people looking, we don't carry those. They said, go online, order them online. So I tried to order them online. And guess what? Delivery's delayed and delivery's delayed. And in the third week, it says, back order. We don't know when these are coming in. These are 7 brushed nickel switch plate covers to go in the kitchen. Some have a light switch, some have a couple of outlets, some have that special button you push, you know, the RF whatever in the middle to get the power to go back on. They don't have them. So my question to all of you, and many of you might have seen my post on LinkedIn the other day, is your supply chain laughing at you? And the question of the day is, you want it when? Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now. I'm Bonnie D, and I have 3 very esteemed guests with me, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So before I introduce my guests, I'm going to do my usual. I have a poem. Let's see, are we actually broadcasting here? Let's take a look. Yes, there we are. Wave hello, guests. Wave hello to LinkedIn, wave hello to Facebook, wave hello to YouTube, and wave hello to Facebook again, because I'm on 2 channels there. Okay, I have a little poem here to introduce my guests, and one of our guest is special because she's new and she's going to have a little poem as well. When I read your name, please just wave furiously. Welcome, dear audience, to Technology Revolution's Glow. You see me glowing? With Bonnie D and her scarlet mic on her Future of Now show. It rhymes. In this era of evolution, AI takes the lead, transforming supply chains, fulfilling, we hope, every need. With data-driven insights and automation's might, the future of supply chain shines finally, we hope, more bright. Today's 3 futurists predict supply chain's embrace of AI, transforming its face, we hope, I keep saying that, as we reach for the sky. Hans Thalbauer, wave hello, with UiPath supply chain reign, crafting solutions worldwide. Innovation is his gain. Did you like that, Hans? I rent these poems out. You will negotiate a rate there. Louisa Loran is new, a seasoned executive pro in strategic business transformation. See, I can say that. Driving value creation through data, AI, and collaboration. Welcome, Louisa. So happy to have you here. Richard Howell is back. Richard at SAP, a seasoned guide, driving thought leadership with wisdom in his stride. Richard, do you have wisdom in your stride? Do you feel like that today? Richard?
Occasionally.
Occasionally. Okay, there. The intersection of AI and supply chains glow. A revolution awaits. Tune in now, and you'll be in the know. Okay, let's get assessment here. Hans, you've heard these poems before. What do you think of today's? Pretty good?
I love it.
Nobody's ever said that. Oh, be still my heart. Louisa, you're new to the show. Did you like it, Louisa?
I did like it. You got a lot in there.
I did. I'll tell you the secret in a second. Richard, you've heard this before. What'd you think of today's? Pretty good?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Wonderful. I love it. I like it. I'm in heaven here. Okay, here's the deal. I go to ChatGPT. I still am a free user. I'm not using the 4 with a little O for Omni yet. And I put in your full bios. Yours, Louisa. Yours, Hans. Yours, Richard. And a little opening and a closing. And then I click submit. Here's the quiz for the day. It's for Louisa because she hasn't been on the show before. How many minutes or seconds does it take ChatGPT to come back with the core of the poem I just read you? Because I edited it. Louisa, how long does it take?
I would say probably 8 seconds. And if you had gone with Gemini, it would have been 6.
Okay. Well, I have a surprise for you. ChatGPT used to respond in about 3.5 seconds. And my friend Dan Geller, who's on many of these shows, said, stop being polite to ChatGPT. You don't have to be nice. It's not a person. But I'm from New York and I was brought up polite. We say please, we say thank you, may I. We say all those good things. I don't know where the rest of you were brought up. And so I didn't stop doing that. But all of a sudden, ChatGPT went down to 2.2 seconds. And last week, it went down to 1 second response time. I kid you not. Richard, I barely hit the enter submit button and the poem is on the screen. It's that fast now. So, Louisa, we went from 8. I think that's the attention span of a squirrel or a goldfish or something, if we're quoting Ted Lasso. So, welcome, everybody. I'm excited about this topic. And Hans and Richard were with me, as well as Brad Pawlowski, who couldn't make it today. A couple of months ago, I think it was March, it's such a big topic that I decided to do a part 2 and invite the two of you back. And somebody was gracious enough to introduce me to Louisa. So, we're happy to have you. So, here's the part where I'm going to ask you each to give us your bio, 3-minute soundbite, condense everything you've ever had to do in your career, in your life, and with AI and with supply chain into 3 minutes. Hans, you're on speaker view. Please go ahead.
3 minutes.
3
Okay.
minutes.
That's a long time, right? So typically I do that in 30 seconds. So yes, my name is Hans Thalbauer. I'm looking after the global supply chain practice at UiPath right now. I started my career pretty much at SAP. I was there for a long time, almost 100 years. And it was actually always fun. I enjoyed it very much. I was focused really on the supply chain, go-to-market sides, and more on the sales, go-to-market side and solution management, of course. And after 20 years, I actually joined Google Cloud. And this is when I met Louisa. And I think we had a lot of fun at Google and really had the chance and possibility to really position Google in the supply chain market and had a wonderful time there. And Google stands for innovation and really big thinking. And I really learned a lot how to use this wonderful technology Google Cloud is providing in the context of supply chain. And a year ago, I joined UiPath. So now I call it the third dimension, right? So first on application, then on data lakes, and now on automation of the business processes. And always, of course, in the last couple of years in the context of artificial intelligence, which in my mind has the chance to really transform the supply chains. So that's me.
Thank you very much. Welcome back, Hans. Always lovely to have you. Thank you so much. Where are you living now, Hans? Where are you?
San Francisco.
Okay. How's the weather out there?
Beautiful.
Good. We'll just go with that then. We'll just go with beautiful. That's fine. Louisa Loran, delighted to meet you, as I've said 10 times already. I'm always happy. I hope nobody takes this from. I'm always happy to have a woman on these shows. I do shows on manufacturing and automotive. Where are the girls? I don't know. So I was delighted to get the introduction to you. Louisa, I'm putting you on speaker view. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself? Tell us what's your passion for, what we're talking about today, supply chain and AI, and a little bit about your career. Go ahead, Louisa.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Bonnie. Great to be here. Thank you for asking and inviting. I have a quite different career. I've built my career across 3 different industries, but common for all of these have been I am a very, very curious person. I look at where does technology take us? What are the trends? I look at how can companies structurally go after it? And probably most importantly, I work with leaders to build courage with them to actually go after these things so it doesn't just become theory. And I've done that first many years at Diageo and at Moet Hennessy, where I learned the skills of sales and marketing and brands and started to, let's say, get more curious about digitization. And then I, as a Dane, was moving back to Denmark. And naturally there you join the biggest company in Denmark, which is Maersk. And you land in a very different operational, standardized world. But at a point in time where there was also an acknowledgement that the logistics industry required a change. So I was fortunate to bring complementary skills and redefine the direction of logistics. After spending 6 years there and truly seeing how all the customers in the supply chain had good ambitions, but also were stuck in this, let's say, handovers in the supply chain and all the inefficiencies that were there. When Google and when Hans came and said Google is setting up a supply chain division, I saw the potential of combining Google's perception of collective intelligence and actually removing that waste. So joined Google with a passion. Of course, a great time to be in a technology company with AI picking up, and therefore I've had the great fortune of building the bridge between where customers are today and what technology can do. Because reality is, in my perception, it's not a matter of what is theoretically possible. It's how do people actually have the ability to bring it into their business transformation.
Thank you very much, Louisa. Delighted to have you. By the way, you're in Denmark. What city? Can you share that with us? And what's the weather?
I am in a tiny city just north of Copenhagen, and the weather is, of course, let's say traditional Danish summer. So that would be 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know exactly what that is in Fahrenheit, but it would not impress the Americans.
Okay. Is it warm or is it cool? That's what I want to know.
It's warm for us, but it wouldn't be warm for you. But we do have the long nights.
Got it. Okay. Lucky you. Yes. I noticed that I don't have to set an alarm in the morning because here in Tennessee, the birds start chirping some kind of furious sound at around 5:30 in the morning just before daylight. So if I don't set an alarm and I'm tuned into the noise outside, I can do that. And I don't know how long our days are. Thank you very much, Louisa. Richard Howells, welcome back. Here you are again. You and I have been working together so many years. I knew you at SAP back in the day. And here you are on my technology revolution. Richard, why don't you bring us up to date on what you've been up to and what's going on with
Sure.
AI in your world? Go ahead.
Well, thanks for welcoming me back, Bonnie. You never learn. I am just realised that I'm the only guest that you have on the session today who doesn't have a team represented in the European Soccer Championships that are going on at the moment. Because I'm from Wales, and we didn't qualify again. But I am based in Boston, where this week we won the NBA championship with the Boston Celtics. So
Yay!
I do have something going for me from a sports perspective.
Yay!
I am based, as I said, near Boston. I've been here for 30 plus years. I haven't quite lost my accent yet. And I've been working in supply chain since the dark ages. I mean, I started when I left college way back in 19 blah, 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 something. And if Hans had worked for SAP for 100 years, I think I worked with him for 80 of those 100 years because we worked together for a long time at SAP. I'm responsible for thought leadership and awareness for SAP's ERP, finance, and supply chain solutions. A very boring title, but as I said last time, my job is to make boring things sound interesting and complex things sound simple. But supply chain has been top of mind for the last few years, so I no longer have to explain to everybody what I do when I say I work in supply chain now. I do that through a series of podcasts. I host 2 podcasts, The Future of ERP and The Future of Supply Chain. I also write lots of articles and blogs and present at physical and virtual events around the world about supply chain, business challenges, trends, and issues, and opportunities.
And opportunities. Richard, thank you. You know, I think the last time you were on with Hans and Brad Pawlowski a couple months ago, I think I mentioned in my opening that nobody, as you said, Richard, nobody knew what supply chain was. And all of a sudden it was cocktail party talk, right? I ordered the switch plates. They're not coming. They're on back order. When the blank? When's the garage door coming? When is this coming? What is the problem? It's something called supply chain. And all of a sudden everybody was talking about it, right?
I think everything is now a supply chain issue, regardless of what the problem is.
I think so too. We got to blame it on something, so may as well be supply chain, right? Okay. Well, thank you all for the bios. I appreciate that. Let's go to the part of the show where I have asked each of you to send me a fictional character quote from a movie or a TV show or a song lyric, and let's see what we've got today. I will read your quote with a little bit of background. We got an interesting one from Hans here, and then I will ask you to explain in your own words what in the world it has to do with our topic today. Louisa, I forgot to tell you, we have a lot of fun on my shows, okay? Nobody talks about technology with as much as a smile. And may I make an announcement before Hans' quote? I recently discovered, because I have to discover it, that this show is number 3 on FeedSpot's top 20 future technology shows. How about that? Cool beans. And last year, I was number 6 on the top 70. So I think I'm about in the same place percent-wise, but it's a shorter list. And number 1 on that future tech shows, number 1 is Slate Magazine, which is a big deal. They're number 1 and I'm number 3. So I consider myself number 2 on the independent shows. Let's keep it that way, okay? Congratulations to Slate. Yoo-hoo! Okay, so Hans, here's your quote. Hans has picked a quote from the character is the factory worker. How appropriate. Played by Charlie Chaplin. Anybody ever heard of him? Modern Times was the movie in 1936. It was a part talkie, comedy film produced, written, and directed by Charlie Chaplin. His last performance as the iconic Little Tramp. He was a little tramp. His character struggles to survive in the modern industrialized world. I think he was prescient. He was predicting something here, Hans, I'm sure. The movie starred Henry Bergman, Tiny Sanford, Chester Conklin, and I know the name Paulette Goddard. It's considered one of the greatest films ever made, one of the first 25 selected by the U.S. Library of Congress for preservation. He's working on an assembly line. He has a lot of stress, and it's all repetitive work. We're going to stop there, and here's the quote Hans has selected. I'm not a machine. I'm a human being. Okay, Hans, how does this have to do with supply chain? Go ahead.
I think it has everything to do with supply chain, right? So, and the reason why I have chosen this quote and selected this is pretty much there was the fear with every industrial transformation that you lose jobs. People were afraid that something will go away, something is changing, I lose my jobs, right? So that's kind of what happened throughout the last 150, even more years, I guess, with every single transformation. And I think we have the same going on with artificial intelligence right now, and how to apply it and how to use it. And there's a lot of fear, actually, also that, jobs are changing, jobs are going away, and what will this do to society and so on, right? So I think actually that's very interesting and very relevant, because it's also having to do with how do we adopt these technology after it. And we need advantages, but I think there are too many which we cannot miss, and so therefore we need to this, and there shouldn't be fear, which history has. Industrial transformation really opens up opportunities in their lives.
Thank you, Hans. You're freezing about every 14th word, but we got most of what you said. It's fine. I don't know. It must be a connection, but we're happy to hear you. Don't drop off and come back. It's fine. So let's go to Louisa's quote. And Louisa's picked a quote from, she told me, I don't watch movies or TV much, so I'm not sure what to do, but I sent you a list, I think, of what do I have, a collection of about 150 quotes, and you picked a wonderful one. It's Johnny Castle, played by the late, I'm going to say beautiful Patrick Swayze, left us way too soon. The movie, of course, is Dirty Dancing, 1987 romantic drama film. Interestingly enough, it's a story of a young woman named Jennifer, a baby houseman, Frances, who falls in love with her dance instructor at a resort in the Catskills, where a lot of families went for vacations. It was based on her own childhood, Eleanor Bergstein. I'm just going to read this quote. Nobody puts baby in the corner. He was defending Jennifer's character. Go ahead. So what does this have to do with supply chain? Louisa?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Bonnie. As you said, I struggled to pick a quote first. I didn't even know this one was on your list, because when you then sent it back to me, I thought, okay, I'm just going to go with what I believe in, because the thing is, anyone my generation knows this movie very, very well. And as a person who loves dancing and things like that, that felt very opportune. The reason it's relevant to this conversation is I think the power of AI has a huge opportunity to give access to information that was before, let's say, held back by traditional structures. And this is exactly what goes on in this scene. The father is like, no, she's not allowed to do that. She's not allowed to be listened to. She's not allowed to dance. But as the character says, nobody puts baby in the corner. And with AI and the conversational AI and AI search, actually discovering the information that sits in silent people's minds or in other steps of the supply chain, I think actually it is super relevant if people feel empowered to discover them.
Very interesting. And that was quite a scene, wasn't it, Louisa, when they were at this family gathering in the ballroom, if you will, and she went up on stage, baby went up on stage, and he and she had perfected a beautiful dance routine. I was a hustle dancer back in the day, and I taught disco dancing, so it was endeared itself to me. I watched the clip a couple of times after you sent this, and to everybody's surprise, he reaches for her hand. She comes up on stage, and they do. My heart stopped, Louisa. I was in tears, literally in tears. I thought, oh my God, I used to be that size, and I
You
used to
wanted
do.
to be her.
I was her back in the day. I danced in Eugene, Oregon. I had a professional dance partner, and we danced in a disco Hawaii contest. We danced to the Heaven Knows segment of the MacArthur Park Suite by Donna Summer. and we came in from opposite sides with matching hammered blue silk tops. And I had a 360 skirt that opened up and little black high heels. And he lifted me up, did me the spin and the death drop to the floor. And then we did our dance and we came in third. And we didn't know that the people who won, the woman owned a dance studio. She shouldn't have been in that contest. We didn't win a trip to Hawaii, but we had a great time. Anyway, that's what it reminded me of. Thanks for the memories. Okay, let's go to enough reminiscing, Bonnie. We're talking supply chain here. Richard has sent a quote from the 1981 BBC TV series episode 1.4, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, comedy sci-fi franchise created by who else? Douglas Adams. Originally a 1978 radio comedy broadcast on BBC Radio 4, it was adapted into novels, stage shows, comic books, the TV series, a text adventure game, and a 2005 feature film. It follows the misadventures of the last surviving man. Do you want to be him, Richard? Arthur Dent, following the demolition of Earth by a Vogon constructor fleet to make way for a hyperspace bypass. I'll leave it there. Here's the scene. Lunk Will, played by Jack Stanley. Oh, great computer, the task we have designed for you to perform is this. We want you to tell us the answer with a capital A. Deep Thought, played by the fabulous Helen Mirren. The answer to what? Lunk Will. Life. Book, played by Dominique Jackson. The universe. Lunk Will. Everything. Deep Thought. Tricky. Okay, Richard, somewhere in there is the quote you picked. I had to do the whole scene. Richard, what does this have to do with our topic? Go ahead.
Well, I think it actually sums up how people are thinking about AI at the moment. It can be the answer to life, the universe, and everything. I think I said this in the last one. If it seems like the answer is AI, now what's the question? We need to flip that around and work out how we solve business problems with AI, not just work out how we can use it. And just as a bit more about that, a Deep Thought was a giant computer, and it was asked this question, what's the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And it took 7.5 million years to come back with an answer to life, the universe, and everything. And the answer was, does anyone know the answer? The answer was 42. So it took all this time to come back with the answer 42. And it also made the point that the answer seems meaningless because the person that asked the question didn't really know what the question was. It was too broad a question. And that's another thing that we can learn when we leverage AI, is how we can train both AI and ourselves to work together better to get the answers to the questions that we're looking for.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. The word train was in there, wasn't it? We can train AI. That's where a lot of the question marks and the guardrails and the ethics come in. Train on what? On whom? And we won't go into that. I don't do the doom and gloom on this show or all of the naysaying, but there are plenty of people who want to do that. Thank you all for the quotes. Very interesting. Hans, I've already put a prediction in the chat for you. I'll do one for Louisa in a minute. So let's start our roundtable, and here's how it's going to work. I'll read your prediction, Hans, and I'll ask you to unpack it. Please take 3 minutes. It's fine. And then Louisa and Richard, if you have any comments, anything to say, agree or disagree. Hans, he said it's okay if anybody disagrees with it, right? You told me that, Hans. Did you? Yes, he did. Okay. He doesn't remember it, but he did. Wiggle one of your polite fingers at me, Louisa or Richard, and I'll see you and I'll call on you and we can make it into a little conversation. Then I'll pick one from Louisa, one from Richard, and let's see how many predictions we can cover. We've got a good half hour here. So Hans says, AI will play a significant role in supply chain risk management. Supply chain disruptions are the norm, not the exception. Enterprises are looking for ways to combine information related to disruption, such as climate information, with enterprise data and leverage AI to predict risk levels. Leading enterprises have already started with this approach. Many more companies will follow this year. So that's a near-term prediction. Hans, go ahead. Unpack, please.
Yeah, for me, the topic of supply chain risk management is super important. And I think in the past, actually until just recently, I want to say, companies mainly used only enterprise information in order to create a forecast, in order to predict the outcomes, right? And enterprise information ignores everything that's going on in the world, right? So, and I think that's an element which we need to consider when we think about how to bring data together. And in order to have really intelligence and artificial intelligence come up with good answers, first of all, you need to think about the data. And so bringing the data together, like climate information, weather information, traffic information, geopolitical issues, what have you, right? So all this information, which on a daily basis disrupts a supply chain, you need to, first of all, build these data lakes and then actually really apply artificial intelligence via AI on this case, because there's so many variables, right? So it's something where if you use traditional techniques, it takes weeks, if not years, in order to come back with the result, just as Richard said. And so here, using AI as a technology really plays a significant role and really can help to minimize risk, or at least to predict actually the risk levels. And with that, come to a much better supply chain, a much smoother supply chain than we have right now.
Where are my switch plates? Where? They didn't give me a delivery date. They just said back order.
Not yet in Tennessee, I guess.
Oh, stop. I know. Trust me, if I was still in New York, I'd be twice as annoyed and they'd still probably be delayed. Louisa or Richard, no pressure. And either one of you have anything to say about risk management for supply chain? Richard, go talk.
I mean, risk management has been the top talking point for supply chain executives since the pandemic. So and getting information from all different sources. I mean, we have the data within our business systems today, but what about your suppliers? What about your suppliers' suppliers, your logistics service providers? We need information from everywhere coming in. And we get to a point when, as Hans mentioned, a data lake, where we have so much information that the human brain can't compute. It would take 7.5 million years for me to work out the best combination and the right answer. And that's, as Hans pointed out, where AI comes into play. And Gen AI in particular, when you can talk and ask the questions and get the answers back. And I think it's all about leveraging that big data to make the right business decisions, and risk management is an ideal use case.
42. Louisa, go ahead.
Yeah, no, not 42, but indeed, I think, like we were talking about before as well, supply chain has become a board level conversation the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And the risk aspect of this has also shown how many of the company's financial reports actually show that you can have a great strategy, a great plan, but you simply cannot execute. So the impact on the board level conversation is significantly bigger than ever before. And equally, I think there's also a point in people taking greater responsibility of your sustainability and impact footprint, where this becomes absolutely fundamental. So you don't just report on your immediate scope 1 emissions, but you need to understand your risk footprint more.
I have a question for you, Louisa, and for everybody. Is there a new C-suite chair that says CSCO, Chief Supply Chain Officer? Does that exist? Is that that a title?
It certainly exists. I think what's interesting with this is it's a function that touches so many other functions. So just like you had before, the sales and marketing is now becoming a revenue. And before you had a COO or a Chief Procurement Officer were under this. And I think that what the supply chain truly does, it touches all of these functions. And therefore, we see companies where it is a C-suite, but we also see companies where they are looking at which broader scope should this fit under, because it's essential to all the other functions.
Thank you. Any comment on the title, Richard or Hans? Hans, go ahead.
Yeah, I think many companies have already established a chief supply chain officer, right, as the C-level representative for supply chain. And as Louisa pointed out, it really goes into all dimensions of an enterprise, right? Supply chain touches everything. It has to do with sales, at the same time also with the supply and everything in the middle, right? So therefore, it's a very crucial role for many companies and for most companies. Therefore, many companies have established that, and it used to be under the chief financial officer. Now it's really a separate role.
Thank you. Just curious about that. Anybody who's watching who's looking for a new job, you might go to a company and say, hey, that lady on radio doesn't have her switch plates. You need a supply chain officer. I'm sorry. I'm not going to let that one go. I really want I want them. Yes. Okay. Let's go to a prediction from Louisa. I picked your prediction number 2. I put it in the chat for you. Louisa predicts AI will make supply chain omni-channels much more responsive to demand, and companies' jobs will become more about reading the patterns. That is a loaded one sentence. Louisa, unpack for us, please. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's very complementary to what we were talking about. And your example of the switch page is a great example where you went to a store, they told you to order online. And with the growth and shift between online and offline that has been happening the last couple of years, no company can write a strategy and then build up warehouses or stores based on that, because in the meantime, the demand patterns will have shifted. So I think this ability to both understand the demand side, understand with all the external data sources, as Hans was also alluding to on the risk side, understand where demand is coming from, and having the ability to not keep that as a, let's say, structured and stuck one, but agile of saying, how do I then distribute and manage my inventory and my goods in a way where I'm able to respond to customers' needs, will be a huge, let's say, differentiator in the future. We see more and more companies that are trying to do this, but what's interesting with that, back to your chief supply chain officer question, is who's the boss then? Who decides where the brands go? Who decides, let's say, the local head of a region? Would that person be in charge of deciding what the sales are there? Or is it the person who actually has the best view of saying, if I am able to move them closer to Bonnie, I will be able to sell them immediately?
Thank you.
And for all of this complexity,
yes,
no brain can handle it. You will need your AI.
you will. Thank you. Hans, Richard, let's talk about this. Go ahead. Richard first, then Hans.
Okay, so I mean, we've talked about omni-channel sales for several years now, as Louisa mentioned. But to enable omni-channel sales, we need to have omni-channel logistics and omni-channel supply chains as well, because we need to change the way that we deliver goods to customers. We're not delivering full pallets to the store anymore. We're delivering individual packages to, hopefully, to you sometime in the near future, Bonnie. But then you have to also leverage technology to work out where you ship things from. Do I ship it from a distribution center? Do I ship it from the retail store that's nearby? Because everything then becomes a distribution warehouse in the supply chain. So leveraging technologies to make those best decisions are really the future.
Hans, thank you, Richard. Hans, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's very well said. And I think one of the major problems right now is that companies allocate inventory to the different channels, right? And so they need to keep inventory for the store, they need to keep inventory for the other channels. And it's impossible to actually switch and move inventory from one channel to the other one during the day. And I think AI has the capability and will provide the capability to make it much more flexible, right? So to really break up these silos where you need to allocate to this channel or to that channel, but really be able to flexibly move things around also during the day. And with that, you can reduce the inventory levels. And so it's a huge impact for the enterprises.
Thank you. Is there something called last mile? Is that a term that we've used? Okay. I have another example for all of you. I have a big deck in back of my house, and the former owner had these kind of dull old green tablecloths on these 2 huge tables I bought with the house. And I decided, you know me, red, Louisa, you're meeting me. I decided I needed red tablecloths on these 2. So when I look out my windows at the deck, I see this red color. So I went ahead and found the right size. One's oval and one's oblong. And not easy to find in red, not the way I wanted it. Okay. So I ordered them online, and the name of the vendor was the big, and we're talking about distribution center here, Richard, and wait till you hear this story. So a delivery was supposed to be made, and I followed the tracking, and the tracking said that the package, both of them they're soft, so they're put in one package, was delivered to my local post office here in Loudon, Tennessee. It's London where the first N is turned upside down into a U. That's how I got here. Louise, I want to move to London. I don't know how it happened. Anyway, it says 5:30 a.m. on a Sunday that it was delivered. And I wait for Monday and no delivery, and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And I wait till the following week. And finally, I see my little mail truck. We have a little truck that goes, little van that puts your mail in your mailbox. And I said, excuse me, my package is sitting in your warehouse at the post office. So he put in a phone call to one of the supervisors, and she said, I can't talk to you. Have the customer call. So he gave me a number. So this is about distribution. Where do you hear this? So I called the phone number, and here's the deal. They let it ring 55 times, and then they disconnect you. I tried 3 times over the course of a day. No voicemail. They disconnect you. 55 rings, no voicemail, nobody picks up, and they disconnect you. So I said, well, I'm going to do something more interesting than that. So I went on to the U.S. Post Office website, and it said, do you have an issue with a delivery, a complaint, or a customer issue? And I filled out the form. And within 5 minutes, a human being called me from the post office. And I said, okay, I'd like to know where my package is. And I said, why don't you answer your phone? He said, oh, people in your community are always complaining, calling the post office. And we answer the phone all day. We never get any work done. We don't answer our phones anymore. Boy, I hope they don't hear this show. Anyway, so I said, I'd like to know where my package is. He said, it never got here. I said, excuse me? I said, the tracking says it's here. He said, oh, that was Amazon's tracking, not ours. It never made it here. We get a pallet, Richard, distribution center, post office, local. We get a pallet with hundreds of packages we have to put into each carrier's route. And he said, it never got here. It doesn't exist. We don't have it. I said, but the tracking says it was there on Sunday. He said, we don't have tracking on Sunday. We don't take deliveries on Sunday. What are you talking about? I said, I'm looking at it on the tracking number online. He said, I'm sorry. It never got here. It wasn't our post office tracking. So much for visibility, so much for omni-channel, so much for distribution center, so much for last mile. So I went online and I reordered both of them, and Amazon told me if the other package shows up, you got to pay us again because you'll have 2 of them. It never, oh yeah, that's something new. You owe us money if the original shows up. Didn't used to do that. So I ordered it and it showed up 48 hours later in my mailbox, right on schedule, and I got the tablecloths, and they're beautiful. But you made me think, Richard, and everybody, when you're talking about visibility, about letting consumers know where things are. So we have another link in the supply chain, and it's the local post office, right? Or UPS. They're your last mile. And how does the supply chain function if they give you false information, duh, or if they can't efficiently handle the package? Anybody want to make a comment? Yes, we're not worried about switch plates. We're not worried about, yes, we're just worried about switch plates, not tablecloths. Anybody want to make a comment on that? Are you surprised? Anybody? Surprised? Hans?
No, not surprised, right? But I think I look at it as an opportunity from a supply chain professional perspective, right? So I think these are exactly the opportunities where we can become better and where it's very clear, right? So the linking between the different parties in the supply chain, the communication and collaboration is still a big, big topic, right? And
Yes.
I personally believe that we need to learn to live with unstructured information, which needs to be used for collaboration, right? So therefore, artificial intelligence, again, really allows you to read through these emails and attachments and processes this information and transforms it into structured information. So instead of trying to do everything EDI, API, and this standard and that standard, I think we can overcome that with large language models, which are being used in this context, and really make it easier and make it easier for everyone involved in the supply chain. So the local post office is also able to get this information much easier, connecting with the big companies and so on, right? So I look at it from an opportunity perspective.
If they'll pick up the phone, I'll tell them you said so. Louisa, Louisa, oh boy, am I in trouble. Louisa, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just building upon what Hans said, I think what's really interesting as well, that a lot of people saw the problem of last mile the last couple of years, and a lot of venture capital investment went into this space. Unfortunately, most of that has since gone away because the reality is the theory of the problem is much simpler than the reality because of the many amounts of data, many, let's say, unknown parts of the chain. And secondly, so the amount of patterns that you need to learn and do your algorithms based on. And I think that's quite interesting. I mean, the amount of people who execute the last mile where they still use their Google Maps on their private phone because it's very reliable, because a lot of people have used it before. And I think there's a learning for all of us in this as well, because when you venture into the world of AI, a lot of people get very excited and they're like, I'm going to tune my own model. I'm going to build this and I'm going to be super famous and very rich as well. But reality is there is a difference between having a lot of traffic and a lot of data that you can tune it on, and you would rather join the best efficient average of the world's data versus this is my most differentiated area and I know I'm the best in the world and therefore I'm going to offer that AI to the market. So there's two different approaches, and I think people are getting a little bit overexcited with how they approach this today and therefore wasting a lot of time and money. Unfortunately, like a lot of the last mile people did, instead of solving the problem that you just described.
Thank you very much. Richard, any comments before I move on?
I'd echo everything that's been said. It's all about communication and collaboration and sharing information.
Accurate information. They denied that was their tracking, and it said it was received at. Now, come on, Amazon.
Yeah, you can't have finger pointing. You've got to.
It was finger pointing.
Yeah,
okay.
You've got to get the resolutions.
Next prediction. This is from Richard, courtesy of Brad, who couldn't join us. They collaborated on this. Brad, hope you're having a good customer meeting, and we miss you. Here we go. Richard's going to tackle this. It's the end of supply chain as we know it. Long live supply chain. The cost, service, quality paradigm is no longer. We're now in autonomy, resiliency, and sustainability. That's a lot. Richard, tell us about it, please.
Well, I think I started talking about this a little earlier when Hans was talking about risk, and everything changed due to the pandemic, and risks in our overstretched global supply chains were exposed because we'd originally designed our supply chains to be the most cost-effective supply chain, to get the goods to the customer and maximize profitability, so get it to them at the lowest possible cost. But now risk resiliency has become the norm, and as Louisa pointed out earlier, with the increase in ESG regulations and mandates about being able to attract scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, for example, or ensuring fair and equity of pay across the supply chain and all the tiers up and down the supply chain, sustainability joined resiliency as a conversation around the world. And either way, and it goes back to visibility that we were just talking about, whether we're talking about resiliency or sustainability, the answer always comes back to we need to improve visibility. We need more access to data, and the right data, and data that you can trust. And once you have all of that data, then analyzing that data, making predictions based on that data, and again, that's where AI comes into play. And the other point that was made in the quote was around autonomy. Automating mundane manual processes, going back to the Charlie Chaplin quote earlier on. Mm-hmm. I'm not a robot, I'm a human, a machine, I'm a human. Yes. Let machines do what machines do best, and let humans do what humans do best. And leveraging automation is a good thing in the right place. And it can also help address some of the challenges around labor shortages at the moment.
That's leading up to the prediction we're going to do from Hans next. But Louisa or Hans, anything you want to say about Richard's prediction? Hans, go ahead.
Yes. So I think actually very well said, right? And the thought, I absolutely agree with the resilient, sustainable supply chain topic, super important, and since quite some time now, and companies are really striving for that. But the number one topic in my conversations with companies around the world right now is cost, right? So we are back to cost, and it's taking out cost in the supply chain. This is the number one topic. There's even a danger that the topic of sustainability really is losing its importance right now, especially here in North America. It's actually not that high on the list anymore. You have the number one topic, cost, reduce costs, reduce cost. That's what's going on right now.
Louisa wants to talk. Add to it. Go ahead, Louisa.
Yeah, no, I would just say that's definitely not just in North America. It's exactly the same in Europe and other parts of the world, I think, as well. I think that the sad part is that we haven't yet proven how to do both, because for sure that is the way forward. It is naive to believe that one can pick, let's say, sustainability over profit, but the model should be able to crack that for us.
Interesting. Richard, comment?
I mean, the reality is that the supply chain's always been a balancing act. Cost versus profitability, or speed versus cost. But we've now got, the balancing act is now on a pivot because there's multiple factors. It's not this or this. we have to get to the point where we can balance the best supply chain that takes into account cost, resiliency, and sustainability, because it's the right thing to do for the planet. And we need to make sure how we make that the right thing to do for businesses as well.
And I think one of the things we are seeing that is working in this space is when people look at the data and, for instance, look at reducing component parts in manufacturing. So let's say reuse, refabricate, and limit the range based on what the market really needs. I think we are seeing that people are able to balance both cost, their consumption footprint, but also being able to serve the market.
But if you look at it, it's very sad at the moment, right? If you look at what the reusability percentage is at the moment, right? It's I think you looked it up, it's 7% or something. Right? So this is actually where we are at the moment. It used to be 9% in 2020, and now we are back to 7%. And so in terms of really making reusability work and the circular economy work, there's still
I was going to say, what happened to the circular economy? It was a big deal a couple of years ago. We were talking about it on my shows, taking the waste from one company and funneling it or piping it to another company and helping and parts that were not throw-outable, that they were reusable, reconstructible, repurposable. I thought it was a big deal. I guess a lot of other big deals have happened in the meantime. Thank you for that. I want to go to a prediction I mentioned from Hans. Let's see. We have a little more time for maybe one more. So Hans says AI will help companies to overcome labor shortage, especially in highly industrialized countries. There's a significant labor shortage in the supply chain. AI and automation will help increase productivity, help close the gap. There's a massive push underway to increase productivity. This will continue in the next years. Well, that's optimistic. Hans, why don't you unpack this and then we'll go around the table. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very simple, right, and very straightforward. It's all about productivity, and it has to do with automation, right? And it's really AI-led automation. And I think in the supply chain, when you look at it, there was a lot of investment with the whole Internet of Things and IoT discussions the last 15 years and on really the physical supply chain, right? We have the shop floors and also the warehouses, highly automated with conveyor belts and robots and what have you, right? The digital supply chain, however, if you look at it, is very manual, repetitive, and document-based. So you have hundreds of different documents. You have hundreds of aspects where you have repetitive processes and manual processes where you type in information again and again. So the automation in the digital supply chain needs to go up. And so therefore, AI-led automation is here a key level in order to increase productivity. And it's possible to actually achieve a 20% in productivity improvement in there, especially on the knowledge worker side.
Thank you. Anybody comments on labor shortage? Richard, looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of having the technologies to both train existing workers and make their jobs more enjoyable, more value added, but also to recruit people into your company. I mean, if I'm trying to recruit a Gen Z person, they want to be able to have all of the tools at their fingertips that they can do that they have in their personal life. How can I use my mobile device to get the information that I need? How do I leverage technologies to the best of its ability to make me more productive, but also more fulfilled in my job? So it's training people to show that AI is there to improve the working environment, and automation is there to improve the working environment, and picking the right areas to automate, as I said a little earlier, get machines to do the things that machines do better than humans, the repetitive tasks. One of the examples that we're seeing is, for example, in the quality inspection process in manufacturing, where there used to be people looking at the production line and spotting defects and taking them out. And if you turn around and talk to your friend for 5 seconds, you miss something. If you've automated that process, if you have cameras and AI that is trained to spot defects, the quality of the products that get manufactured improves, which means the profitability of the products improve and the customer satisfaction of those products improve. So it's a great example where AI and automation working together with humans can help.
training humans and training AI. How about that? We've got two. I want to sneak in one more prediction here. I'm going to cut this one short because I want Louisa to do her prediction 3. You say Gen AI will make supply chain geographical boundaries blur and promote markets of freer trade. Hans likes that one already. Louisa, 2 minutes, and then we'll close after that. Go ahead.
Certainly, thank you. I think the reality is that a lot of people have their supply chain built up based on historical contracts and historical footprints. But with the availability of Gen AI that has the ability to translate much more real time and more effectively, and also has the ability to search documents, we are seeing more and more people actually being able to clear customs in more countries than they've ever been able to do. And this ability to, let's say, explore and enter into new markets is creating a huge new opportunity. And if you combine that with the challenge that Hans raised in terms of risk and resilience, actually, this is a great opportunity for people to, let's say, play the market wider and invite in for more. That could also be a way to overcome some of the labor shortages that cannot be managed by automation.
Thank you. Any comments, Richard? Go
I
ahead.
would also say it's a way for smaller companies to engage in the market as well and be visible and act like large companies and compete against the larger companies. Because again, with technologies and with digitization, everyone is equal as far as a customer is concerned buying a product. So how to leverage that is a way for companies to grow and be more competitive with their larger competitors.
I'm going to ask you all for a closing prediction, 2 sentences max. When will we see AI really working to make improvements that are tangible, that are productive, that are efficient, that are cost effective in supply chains? And you can think of any industry you want. It can be very specific, any product you want. When will we see something that we can say, yes, it's now? Hans, I'm sorry to pop that on you, but what do you think? Hans, you go first, then Louisa, then Richard, then we're going to close.
I think we are seeing that already, right? So
Okay.
companies started to leverage AI models and machine learning models already in the last couple of years. I think you see it for areas like demand forecasting, which is one of the prime areas where machine learning, not necessarily the complete AI models, but the machine learning aspect plays a huge role. And you see that adopted very fast. And then you see, especially in the document processing, so in the unstructured communication, so email and so on. So here you see actually a huge push right now where companies are so interested in adopting these large language models, and with that really improving the whole communication collaboration. So it's not in the far future, it's actually in the near future where you see more and more of these adoptions, and learning by doing, right? So that's what's going on right now.
Louisa, your prediction? Is it here? Is it coming?
Well, it's for sure here, and we are seeing people use it. I think what's interesting is that the change happening in some industries, such as retail or automotive, have been by large players coming in and changing the model of that industry. I think what will happen in the remaining industries to join, either you need someone in a big position to either redefine that industry, or the consumer engagement, exactly as Hans was saying, will create a push to the world to operate in a different way. So either you go by industry transformers, so to speak, or you have the consumers drive the change.
Thank you. Richard, wrap it up.
Well, Hans mentioned examples of use cases, and so did Louisa. Hans mentioned dynamic demand forecasting. Louisa mentioned the customs clearance is already happening. The key is to identify repeatable business processes where AI can solve business problems, like the quality inspection example that I gave. So the reality is the future is now when it comes to AI, but you have to identify the business use cases for your company.
Thank you. I want the 3 of you to join me. We're going to play the outro music in a second, but I want you to join me, and you're going to wag your finger. Louisa and Richard and Hans have done this before. On the count of 3, you're going to join me in yelling, no, no, no. People say the future is already here, although it's mitigated by your last comments, everybody. But we're talking about the big picture future. People say the future is already here, and our answer is 1, 2, 3. No, no. Come on,
No.
Louisa, shout it out. No, no, no.
You've
That
got a
was-
group of Europeans, Bonnie.
No. That was yesterday's future. Today's future didn't happen yet, and it's going to. And we're going to see if we can make it a much better one for AI and supply chain. Bonnie D signing off. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. Let's see if I can do this. Let me share my music and let me play the outro.
Thank you for joining us
It
for
worked.
Technology Revolution, the future of now. Mark your calendar to join host Bonnie D. Graham every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern on the Voice America Business Channel to hear how technology is impacting your future now.
Thank you. Bye.